No, I am so sorry. Oh, I'm frazzled. I need to get my mind together. But we are coming up in 2-1. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. What a blessing. Got so much to talk about. The Olympics have started. I'm excited about that. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about something that I've just found out about Toussaint Louverture, the leader of the Haitian Revolution. Well, he is to Haitian people what George Washington is to the American people. Well, the International Olympic Committee will not allow his image. They're going to let his horse, but not his image, be on the Haitian team's uniforms. Yeah, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But today, let's talk about the opening ceremonies. Uh, Vice President Vance and his wife Usha, sending them much love. They are about to add to their brood a fourth child. May God bless them. I think you can wish them that. No matter what your politics are, you want people to be well. And may God bless them and grant them all health and long lives. And may they work to do the same for everybody else. How about that? Well, they went to the Olympics, and I'm sure they were thrilled to be there. Well, guess what happened? They were booed. But American audiences didn't see that. Why? Why? The same thing happened to Donald Trump at the US Open. I know I was there when it happened. And what was interesting was I saw the news and it was like, were you even there? Because, New Yorkers let you know, Jim Narakis, of fairness and accuracy
Yes,
reporting.
yes, we do.
They don't, they are not respecters of persons. I lived there for a long time. I love that place. And they will, but Americans are like that. Americans, we're a different group. I love it. I love us. We let you know what's going on. But in New York, that's like cranked up to 10 by a factor of 10. And they were booing in fabulous Arthur Ashe Stadium. They weren't that sedity, as they say, that Tony. No, 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 no. They let them know. They let him know that they did not like what he's doing. And he grimaced. But you didn't see that because the USTA, the United States Tennis Association, had asked broadcasters not to show that, not to air that. And so, what is going on? We're going to have Greg Palast on to talk about protecting your vote. He is showing his movie Vigilantes Inc. You can access it for free on gregpalast.com. I'm telling you, you need to get your popcorn, get your friends together, because when you see this, you'll laugh, you'll cry, and you will be inspired to vote. But let's talk about what's happening, because now it seems that corporate media are running scared. What is that? Is it not newsworthy that the vice president of the United States was booed at the Olympics, or am I making too much of this?
Well, we are in a situation where the media are, as you say, running scared because we have a president in power who's an authoritarian, who is openly dedicated to using the power of the state to punish any kind of media that he feels is unfair to him, which is to say any media that's critical of him. And he is willing to use lawsuits, multi-million-dollar lawsuits, sometimes billion-dollar lawsuits. He's willing to use the power of the FCC, which you need to have an FCC to regulate the airways because two people can't broadcast on the same airwave at the same time. But there has traditionally been safeguards in place to prevent this regulation from being used to enforce partisan censorship, and those safeguards are gone. The chair of the FCC, Brendan Carr, is openly saying that it's his job to punish media that are reporting unfairly, which is to say, reporting critically about his boss. And so these networks, they still rely on these broadcast channels for a big part of their profit, and they cannot afford to have them taken away. And so they are doing whatever they can to keep Donald Trump happy. They have settled lawsuits that are completely frivolous. That would not. There's no way that these lawsuits would have held up in court. But they're a way for the networks to pay kind of a bribe or a tribute to Donald Trump in hopes that this would make him feel more lenient towards them. It hasn't worked. You can't buy off someone like Trump. He doesn't stay bought. He because his appetite is unlimited. So the same companies that have been offering him these tributes are still being attacked as fake news, as Democratic media, and the threats are still hanging over their head. And so a business like NBC does not want to offend this. It's like a grumpy giant that lives next to your village. He can come and crush NBC. Hopefully, if this goes through the courts, hopefully the Supreme Court will stand up for the First Amendment. That is not a guarantee. I think earlier iterations of the Supreme Court, it would have been a slam dunk. But this Supreme Court that has 3 Trump appointees, who knows how they're going to rule on anything, really. And so NBC is, I think they are trimming their coverage so as not to offend this dangerous individual in power.
But we're talking with Jim Norika's Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, sending so much love to your team there. Your beloved Janine Jackson. Happy birthday. It's still a birthday month to me.
Yes, sure.
And of course, this wonderful team at Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. I am curious about that. Because are they trimming the reporting, or are they not being honest? Because don't you think it's important for Americans to know? It's important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think this is a real disservice to. It's absolutely a disservice to the American public.
How are we being disturbed by not knowing how the world body?
Yeah, the booing of Vance at the Olympics is a dramatic demonstration of the wild drop in popularity that America has suffered. Not just the Trump administration, but the country of America has, in some European countries, suffered a 50-point drop in the favorability. The number of people in countries who see the United States as an ally, even, has dropped precipitously in country after country. And that is, something that is of concern to every American. Here's a demonstration of that popularity, of that lack of popularity, in a very, graphic, visceral way. And we're not going to see it because the NBC is more concerned about protecting its profits than they are about serving democracy.
So do you think that, but you've got NBC, but then you've got the USTA, the United States Tennis Association. You've got the power structure at the top of sports who are telling the broadcasters, don't touch this. What does that say to you? That you've got the governing bodies as well as, I can't call them press anymore. I guess they're just media.
Yeah.
Because the press report the news. That's not what's happening here.
Right. Yeah. With the USTA, it's disappointing that they would ask this, but their job is to promote tennis. And they feel like having the president there and not having the president pissed off at them promotes tennis more than than having Donald Trump mad would. And I hope I wouldn't make that decision if I were in their shoes, but I can understand where they're coming from.
Well, no, we'll explain that. Explain where they're coming from.
They're serving the interests of the tennis organization. They're not, they're not an organization that is supposed to be promoting democracy, promoting the public knowledge, public education. That's not their job. Their job is to promote tennis. That is different with the media that are covering tennis. That their job is not to promote tennis. Their job is not to promote Donald Trump. Their job is to inform the public. That's what they are supposed to be doing. That, as you've often pointed out, they're the one industry whose rights are guaranteed in the Constitution because they are so vital to democracy that we know what's going on, that we understand what is happening, what our rulers are doing, and what our fellow citizens are doing, what we're thinking, because we can't act as populace unless we have an understanding of how we're feeling. We need to have horizontal information, not just top-down information.
But let me ask you this: Isn't it interesting and maybe dangerous that this is being covered more accurately, really, which is, I mean, I can't just say fully, that this is actually being reported? I saw this first in The Guardian, which is a British newspaper, not in the United States. What does that say?
Well, if you live in an authoritarian country, you will probably get more accurate reporting about your country from outside the country than from the controlled press inside the country. And that is, there's always been issues where you would get, you get a better understanding of U.S. foreign policy from reading The Guardian or Le Monde or something than you would get from reading the New York Times or reading the Washington Post. And that's always, I think you would get a better understanding of the Irish situation reading the New York Times than reading the Times of London. It works both ways. But I think that we're entering into a new mode where things that are happening in public, in front of everyone, are being erased from the public record. This is the kind of thing that George Orwell wrote about in 1984, where things that are contrary to the official narrative go down the memory hole and are destroyed. And I think that more and more, to get just a basic understanding of what is happening on a day-to-day level, people are going to turn more to overseas press than you will from CBS or ABC or the Washington Post. I will say I'm disappointed that the BBC has put their stuff behind a paywall. Which I think is really kind of reprehensible. I'd be very disappointed if PBS wouldn't let people in England see the NewsHour because they didn't pay for it. That seems very contrary to the idea of public media, frankly. If you're not producing news as a public good instead of a scarce commodity that only goes to people that pay for it, it's hard to see why you're in public media. But that's a digression. I do think that Americans are going to be looking overseas more for their news, and I hope looking at independent media in the United States, which we are still in a situation where the powers that be have a lot of hooks into the major media. They're parts. They're part of conglomerates that have lots of different economic interests that the government can put the squeeze on. For example, Amazon. The Amazon's owner Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, and he has recently been restricting the kinds of views that you can publish in the Washington Post, seemingly in an effort to curry favor with Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And that is because Amazon, which is where Jeff Bezos gets his real money from, is in the business of selling computer storage, cloud storage, and a huge customer of theirs is the government, the Pentagon, the CIA, other branches of non-military industrial complex parts of the government. And Donald Trump has made it very clear that he is willing to to hold coverage in the Washington Post against Amazon when it comes to doling out contracts for cloud storage, and that is worth billions of dollars to Jeff Bezos. And so it's not no matter how much the Washington Post loses money, but no matter how much money it made, it would not be enough to make up for the money that Bezos stands to lose from making Trump angry and getting contracts taken away from Amazon. And so the Washington Post can be in effect held hostage because of the other interests that Jeff Bezos has. And that is not true to the same extent for Common Dreams or Truth Out or Drop Site or these independent news media. Some of them old and established, some of them are new in the digital age, that are trying to set up news that is not beholden to either corporate advertisers or to the profits that other branches of a conglomerate make, and so they are still able to report on what the Trump administration is up to without having to either censor themselves or spin it in a way that the information becomes kind of neutered.
But how much does Jeff Bezos need? I mean, why does he need the Washington Post?
Well, it's clear that he bought the Washington Post because he thought that it would be handy to have a newspaper in the nation's capital that all the people in Congress, people in the bureaucracy read as their daily paper. He thought it would mean that the government would be doing favors for him because they want good coverage in the Washington Post. As it turns out, it means that he now has to do favors for them because they're willing to use the withholding of contracts to Amazon as a sword hanging over his head.
But do you think he's that naive? I mean, because we all know that it's like you're not elected as much as you are selected. Everybody's not allowed to buy these newspapers. Everybody's not allowed to buy radio stations, television stations. They say that you can. That is not true. You have to cash in a lot of political favors to own a newspaper, to own a radio station, to own a television station. That's real. So my question is, who is he? Why was he allowed to own the Washington Post? It would be a little bit different, if I were not kind of wise of the ways of the world, but I lived in Washington. The Graham family were one of the most prominent families in Washington, which puts you at the top of the social food chain everywhere. You had to kiss Catherine Graham's ring and Donald Graham's ring. I mean, I don't mean it in some awful way, but they were very, very prominent in Washington in terms of shaping policy. They I guess what people call baller shot callers. I mean, and I'm sure there were some other conglomerates that could have come together to buy it, but they were not going to get it. They let Jeff Bezos have it, and look at what he's done with it. He's become a gatekeeper.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Bezos, when he bought the Washington Post, a lot of people were very happy. A lot of people thought, this white knight has come in to save journalism in the nation's capital. I think that there was a rosier view of the tech world back then. There was this was still the era of, don't be evil being Google's motto. And there was a sense that big tech were kind of kinder, gentler billionaires, and that they, they seemed like, here's some people who just like wrote some code and became billionaires, and now they're like want to do something with their money. And I think that the bloom is off the rose in terms of how people view tech. There's on the one hand an understanding that very, very largely it is an industry like any other, interested in maximizing profit. And on the other hand, to the extent that tech has any distinct personality, it's kind of creepy, and sort of like there's a vision that the world should operate like a computer, with an operator, responding to commands that the operator types in, and the tech moguls see themselves as those operators, and that's when you see something like Peter Thiel, that's
Yes.
I think he kind of represents that, but he's certainly not alone in the world of tech bros in terms of their vision for how society should be. And Jeff Bezos, I don't think he has the kind of like, transhumanist kind of like Ubermensch fantasies that someone like Peter Thiel does. I think he is mainly interested in being, he was the wealthiest person in the world. I think he likes that. I think he wants to be that again. I don't think that you get to be a billionaire without having some kind of hoarding complex.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a mania for accumulating money,
Mm-hmm.
to get that much money that you don't need to get, literally like 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 times what you could spend in a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
It's not normal people have needs that they are trying to fill. Billionaires are people who have a complex for gathering money in. Bezos just laid off a huge number of people from the Washington Post because the Washington Post wasn't making enough money. It's particularly not making money because its subscribers, who tend to be more progressive than the average person, are turned off by his taking the paper in a sharp right turn, and that is certainly hurting the finances. But the last time I looked, the paper was losing something like $100 million a year, and you're talking about a person who has hundreds of billions of dollars. If you adopted a cat, that cat would cost less of your wealth to take care of than Jeff Bezos was not willing to spend on the Washington Post. The Amazon's stock fluctuates like most stocks. It goes up and down. There are many days where Bezos either makes or loses more money in one day than it would cost to run the Washington Post for a decade. And he's not willing to. He's bought this thing. He's identified his name with it. He's not willing to spend any fraction of his vast, enormous wealth. It's hard for people to comprehend the size of a number like Jeff Bezos's net worth. But he is unwilling to part with any of that, because I think that billionaires have they're like hoarders. It's like if you know a hoarder, trying to talk them into like getting rid of that pile of newspapers.
But the thing
that's trying to get Jeff Bezos to spend money on his newspaper that he bought.
But see, for me, it's his wealth. You can have it, but it's what you do with it. I remember and of course, he never had his wealth did not approach that of Jeff Bezos. But I've seen people like Bill Cosby. Yeah, I'm saying his name because he's someone I still have so much admiration for. People are complex. They are. That having been said, when you look at his art, all he ever did was uplift mankind, no matter what was going on inside of him. And that's all I can ask of anyone. That's all I can ask. And that's all I've ever asked of him. If you needed to go to school, he and his wife made sure that you went. At the height of his fame, he gave the largest amount of money that an HBCU could even dream of, $26 million 40 years ago, for them to build the most prestigious building on the campus of Spelman College for Women. When people were looking at black colleges, I'm going to send my child to Harvard, not Howard. He sent his kids to black schools. And you just always heard stories of his and his wife's largesse. And there are a few other people. I mean, I remember watching a story on 60 Minutes, a man who had owned a very successful business. His last act of his life was to turn the business over to the workers. He said, "You worked here, you built it. I wouldn't be here without you." Profit sharing. I mean, everybody does not have to greed. I mean, greed is not good. And everyone, I've seen some greedy poor people, and I've seen some generous wealthy people. And I think that at some point we have to grow up in our politics, Jim, and decide that something like a newspaper is a public trust.
Yeah.
It is not the radio station is a public trust. A television station is a public trust. This radio show for me is a public trust. I have my opinions, of course. And you know what? Just going forward, you're all going to see more Republicans and people on the show because I want you to hear their thoughts. And I'm sensitive to the fact that there are people in this audience who have thoughts that differ from mine. But while I have my opinions, I'm not going to be unfair to someone, and I'm not going to lie on anyone, because that would be wrong to do that to you. Just try to be a decent person. And when you know that your newspaper resonates, it's the newspaper of record in the capital of the Western world. You don't have the right, Jim, to do with that newspaper what he's been doing. The publisher walked away. They said, it's because he was partying at the Super Bowl. I mean, are you serious? No, it's like he's unplugging the newspaper. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
And and you don't do that. Help me, Jim. Am I missing something?
I do think that there's a difference between people who make their money from doing something, including running a business, which is doing something, as opposed to people who have accumulated billions of dollars by moving money around. I think that when you have spent your life watching the numbers grow in your financial statements, and that's all you've done with your life, I think it's very hard to part with that money. I think that's become your identity.
Yeah.
And to let it go, is very hard. And I think there's relatively few billionaires, like Bill Gates. I think in many ways has been a negative force in the world. I think he's been very bad for American education, for example. But
Yeah.
he has ideas about what should happen in the world, and he's given away money to try to make that happen. People like even the Koch brothers, so I think have been really a disaster for the world. And they promoted fantasy climate change denial, but at least they are spending their money to try to affect the world. And I feel like that is at least a more human reaction than just trying to create as big a pile of money as you can and sit on, which I think I believe that is Jeff Bezos's chief motivation, is to see how many zeros can be behind his name when people talk about how much money he has.
As opposed to his ex-wife,
Right.
who's finding ways to give the money away.
Yeah.
He says, so much of this is grounded in the fact that Toni Morrison, when I was at Princeton, really helped to shape my life, because she's supposed to be a very, very talented writer, which is how they got into Amazon in the first place, because of her love of books. And I'm just saying, at some point, as my father calls it, he says, he said, do not have a bad case of need mo. I'm like, what's that? Need mo. Just need more of this. Need more of that.
Absolutely.
Stop. Enough has to be enough.
Yeah.
And I think that the people of Washington have to stand up. But see, it's the people of Washington who don't read the Washington Post. It really is an insider's paper. But I still am disturbed by what's happening to it.
Yeah.
And what he's doing, but all the NBC, they're not reporting the news. I mean, none of these people are. I've not seen any of these corporate media types say, you know what, he was booed. Our vice president was booed. Therefore, what is going on with our public image? Because it's not just, it's ICE who we have deployed there. What are we, tone deaf? And then you've got Gaza. All around the world, we have taken massive hits. And Americans still don't know it. And to me, that is dangerous.
Absolutely. No, we need to know how the world views us. That's vitally important.
With our soldiers overseas, that endangers them.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've just gone on. But before we bring on Greg Palast, what do you want us to know? Oh my gosh, it's too much for me sometimes.
I want to make I think that the people who are listening to your show are doing the important first step, which is to seek out points of view that are not being covered in corporate media. To listen to someone who is willing to bring on voices of dissent. I think that is incredibly important. It's always important. It's now maybe more important than ever. And to find other kinds of independent media, and if you have the wherewithal, to support them, because these if you are not getting your money from corporate advertising, it needs to come from somewhere, and media is going to be answerable to the people who write the checks. And if media are dependent on their readers, on their viewers, that is really the healthiest situation you can have, because they are then you're getting media from you're getting your information from media that are answerable to you.
Jim Nareka's Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, fair.org. Everybody support them as they support you. If you want really just some of the best critique of the news, you need to investigate those who are doing the investigating. You need to understand the motivations behind the owners, behind the reporters, all of that. You need to know the stories behind the story so that you can get the best information. That is what fairness and accuracy in reporting. They really live up to their name. Fairness and accuracy in reporting. They call corporate media out. They call everybody out because they want us to have the truth. Sending you so much love. My love to the birthday girl, Janine
Thank
Jackson.
you. Thank you
I
so much.
celebrate my birthday for 30 days, so I'm with her. Much love to you. I've got
Thank you.
our dear. You can say hello to and goodbye to Greg Palast. I've got to get him back on because he he will be on in a hot second. He was waiting for me. He was like, "What is she doing? What?" But I'm gonna have him on. But I want to thank you so much for being with us today on
Thank you.
Super Bowl day, on Super Bowl Sunday. I know he said, "Really, what? Go on, go." You can look
All
at
right.
you can go turn it on right now. Hey everybody, Greg Palast is coming up, and I am so glad that he is here because we're talking about voter protection. Voter protection right now. Hello, handsome. With that hat, I know he's going to put that hat on his head. But when Steve Bannon calls for ICE to be at the polls, when the president on the next day says we've got to nationalize these elections, I think you need to pay attention. And I tell you what, in 2000, when we saw with our own eyes the election being, yeah, it was stolen. It was, because it has now come to light that if the count had been allowed to go forward, Al Gore would have won. Yeah, just think about that. Well, the person who broke that story was Greg Palast, of course, New York Times best-selling author, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, wonderful documentaries. You've got to see Vigilantes Inc., America's new voter suppression hitman. Yeah, you need to see that because I can tell you, when you see that movie, although it came out in 2024, it is as relevant today as it was then because everything that he reported on then is happening right now. Greg Palast, can you hear me? Oh, yeah, take your earbuds out, but it's all right. Because I want to know what his thoughts are because so much of this is what he has foreseen. Greg, you with me? Well, we're going to get him in a hot second. But I want to know what your thoughts are. Do you know if you're registered to vote? You can go to vote.org, vote for 11 um, .org. So that's vote.org, vote for 11.org. All you have to do is go there or call 1-866 our vote and find out if you've been purged from the voter rolls. It's very, very simple. You need to find that out. I'm fortunate enough to be based in Illinois, where we have same day on site voter registration. So if I were purged, I'd get to the polls and I would find out if I found out that I'd been purged. Well, I'd register right there on the spot and I'd be able to vote. I would not get a provisional ballot. I don't like those. But if you're not in one of those states, I suggest that you find out about your voting status right up until you vote and try to vote early. Attorney Barbara Arnwine has told us that we need to do that. Attorney Darrell Jones, they've said, vote early if you can. And when you go to the post office and drop off your ballot, ask them to stamp your ballot.
Can you hear me, Santita?
Stamp that post that you send so that you can have the right postmark on it because you're being penalized for that as well. Hey, Mark, hey, go Patriots. Well, we will see what's going to happen.
Hello?
That's right. And Bernadette, you said, is Bill Gates still talking about dimming the sun? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he is. Greg Palast, I can't hear you right now. Oh my goodness, why don't you come out and come back in? Oh my goodness, because it's all fuzzy. Well, you know what? While I'm waiting for Greg, you know what I'm going to do? I want to tell you about the National Prayer Breakfast. My brother, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, went viral. He went viral with a prayer that he gave at the National Prayer Breakfast. I knew when I heard the prayer that it was going to be something that people would talk about. I just did not know that millions of people would be
Okay.
viewing it. Let me give you a
You
little bit
can't
of
hear
the
me, can you?
backstory.
Oh, shoot.
The National Prayer Breakfast is one of the signature events in all of American government. It is primarily right wing. Very, very few Democrats participate. In fact, this year, what they did do was have an alternative uh, to the National Prayer Breakfast, which began under Eisenhower. And the hope was that the book of Timothy instructs us to pray for our leaders and pray for them, especially so that they can be of service to the poor. That's the origin of that breakfast, and it's gotten far away from that. And so there's been a lot of disappointment. But my brother tried to
Okay.
convince Democrats to go. He's part of this prayer group. Uh, he said, because even though they know that I'm for DEI, I'm for affirmative action, I don't believe in the agenda that many of them espouse, at least that they vote for. He said, they know who I am, but I'm also Christian. I'm a praying man. And I know that you cannot change your opponent's mind if you're not speaking to them. So he's the co-chair, the Democratic co-chair. They have a Republican and a Democrat. And so it was very interesting. The
Is there
president
any
wanted to talk for
chance
45
you
minutes.
can do the audio by phone?
The organization pushed back. He did speak not just for 45 minutes, but he went over, and he actually threw a lot of Republicans under the bus who do not vote for him. It was a whole lot, and a lot of people in the room were embarrassed.
Call Patrice.
They were. And these primarily Christian people, and a lot of them, like 75% of the audience, is international. And they have come in from all over the world. And it's a week of activities. It's held in the largest ballroom in Washington, D.C., which is the Hilton, holds 4,000 people. And to show you how big it is, it was full for the breakfast, but the night before for the dinner, it was full as well. The cardinal who determines who will be elevated to sainthood, he was there and gave the opening prayer. That kind of gives you the sense of who is there and the people who are there.
Okay.
The entire
I'll send
diplomatic
you
corps
this
from all
link,
over the world, they're there. And so it was a tremendous honor for
see if you can get
my brother and
the
Congressman
air.
Klein from
I
Virginia
can't hear
to
her.
be the
She can't hear
hosts.
me.
And
Here.
the
Just sent
host
it to
they
you.
did. It was wonderful. And guess what? Well,
Mhm.
after the president
me to
went on
text
for
you?
more than an hour, mind you, they didn't want him to speak for the 45 minutes. Up my brother stood, and he spoke compassionately, Greg Palast, but he was very honest. Not but. He spoke compassionately and honestly and earnestly about. Um, he borrowed from Jelly Roll, who's a popular, uh, profoundly anointed
Yeah.
artist who's been to prison. Young white man. He has got a powerful voice. One of the best singers I've heard in a long time. And
Whatever works.
and he sings about the pain of people. And my brother, lifted from one of his songs, and he said, people are not lazy; they're
Did you get in?
tired. He
Do
talked
you hear
about that,
anything?
and he talked
Put
about
in
having
Greg Palast right
compassion
there for the moment. You
for
can
the
change
poor
it next time.
and not taking SNAP benefits from people. And he talked about, while the president stood behind him, he talked about praying for the people, um, praying for the families of those who would be buried in Minnesota. And oh my goodness, there is that. And some people said he humiliated the president. That was not his point. No, he wouldn't do that. That's not his style. What he did do was speak earnestly and honestly. He took his responsibility seriously. So that's kind of the backstory there. So I'm bringing
Hello?
up Greg Palast. I've got him now to talk about Steve Bannon. I only have about 10
Why is
minutes
this
left, but
happening?
no, get the sound together. But that's some of the backstory to that, and I hope you got a little bit out of that. And what did you say, Mark? That he needs to mute his phone? Okay.
Hello, we were
We
working
can't
a
hear
minute
you,
ago.
Greg. Oh my goodness. Well, you know what this means? Well, you want to go out and come back
I
in?
don't know why.
Okay, we'll do it. But it was a tremendous, tremendous honor for
It
me to
was
attend the
working?
breakfast
Yeah, for a
with my
moment when I
brother.
had
He
nothing
asked
on,
me to
but then
come,
the picture went
and
off.
I
You're in the show.
just
Everyone
adore
sees
my
you.
brother. I'm so proud of him and the work that he does. And you know what really touched me?
I can't hear
The
you.
Capitol is a very, very hierarchical place. The workers don't speak to the members. Members speak to each other. Chiefs of staff speak to each other, and everybody else is an underling. And my brother, left his office, bless his heart, and he picked me up from the airport. He still is my younger brother, but he thinks he's my big brother. And so I guess he didn't think I could get from the airport by myself. And bless his heart, as we walked through the Capitol, one of the things that really touched me, Greg, was to see the workers.
Yeah, no.
When they saw him, they were like, "My man, how you doing?" He was like, "Hey,
For background.
what's up?" It
Alright,
was
so let's go
wonderful to
back.
see
I don't
how
care
the
about
people
background noise.
in the cafeteria hugged him and
I'll
took
just go
care
to.
of him.
Well, I don't know. I have no idea.
That was just, that was really, really
Okay.
wonderful.
Can you hear me now?
So I think
No.
people can hear you. Can you all hear Greg Palast?
Heck.
I can't hear you, but that's all right. People can hear you. Greg Palast, I have got 10 minutes for you. I'm not going to interrupt you. I want you to respond to Steve Bannon's call to put ICE at the polls, particularly in light of your
I was hearing it before.
movie that I encourage
See, now I'm pressing.
everyone
Okay, look.
to
I'm
go to
pressing this
gregpalast.com
This
to see.
on. It should
You have a
Yeah.
listening party, have a viewing party. You need to do that. Vigilantes Inc.,
Join in the
America's
chat. I
new
said
voter
okay.
suppression hitman.
You wish I got
So
yours too.
don't worry,
It says
Greg.
my phone is
The
not.
audience
Oh,
can hear you. I cannot, and that's all
Where'd I
right.
get my
So
phone?
I'm giving you
Let me see if I
now
can do it.
8 minutes, and you respond
Siri, where's my
to
phone?
to Steve Bannon. I mean, what do you think? Okay, Greg, Greg, you got it. You got the floor.
living
Well, I
room.
guess not. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to have Greg on. I'm going to have Greg on hopefully tomorrow, because this is what I want him to really stretch out and talk about this. Because if ICE are going to be at the polls, they won't just be at the front door, everybody. They are going to create choke points. I really think they're going to do that. So even if you're on foot, if you're a pedestrian, or if you're a motorist, either way, they're going to find a way to make it harder for you to get to the polls. And you really, really need to be prepared for that. And so please find out, go to vote.org
Siri,
or
find my iPhone.
vote411.org or 1-866 our vote. Find out if you are registered. Find out if you're still registered. And make sure that you have enough space before the window closes for registration to go and get registered to vote. Even if you find out that you've missed that window, get registered so that you can be ready for the fall, because that's very, 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 very important. But take the threats to the vote seriously. Remember, the original intent of the founding fathers was not to have you vote. That was not in the cards, everybody. And everybody, including white men without property, had to fight to get their vote. No one's had to fight harder than black people, because we're the readily identifiable other. I get it. But I tell you what, you're only as strong as the most vulnerable population. Think about that, everybody. Think about it. So what you need to do is make sure that you're still registered to vote, but also keep your eyes and your ears open. Take people seriously. When people tell you who they are, believe them, everybody. Believe them. Believe them when they say that ICE will be at the polls. And you know what? They don't have to be at the front door. They can be all over the city. There are 600 police officers in Minneapolis, maybe a little bit more. There were 3,000 ICE agents. The drawdown has taken that number down to 2,300. They still outnumber the Minneapolis police by a factor of 4. So they are going to be all over that city. And mind you, Minnesota has the highest percentage of voters in the country. The Somali American community votes at a rate north of 95%. I think it's as high as 97%. Think about that, everybody. Think about that. There's a lot that is going on here. Believe these folks when they say, believe them when they say that they're going to put in place these intimidating people, and they intimidate you. They physically attack Americans. They've killed Americans. They've done all of that. And so with them being put in place during the election season, that ought to give you cause to pause. It should not frighten you, but you should be prepared. You should be prepared. I want you to, I'm going to get Greg PALAST on. I think I've got it. Greg, if
Can
you don't
you
mind, can I
Sorry.
bring you? No, it's okay. Can I bring you on? We're getting feedback now. Oh, it's all right.
Turn off your phone. Okay. Can you getting feedback now?
No, I'm not. But you know
Good.
what? I've got to close the show now.
Oh, I don't know
But
what
you know what?
happened there.
But let me do this. I'm still getting feedback. So this is what I want to do is know if I can get you tomorrow or Wednesday. I prefer to get you tomorrow to talk about Steve Bannon, because to me that really fits in with Vigilantes Inc. We want everyone, maybe we can do a quick something with some people over at somebody's house before you leave Chicago, to look at the movie, because we're encouraging people to get, even though the movie came out in 2024, it is as relevant in 2026. In fact, it's more relevant in 2026 than it was in 2024, because it's like the tactics that they said that they were going to employ, they put them on steroids. So I want Greg here to talk about this. I want you to name names. I want you to help to go through the plan. My father always said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And these people do not plan to fail. They are planning and they are plotting, which is why you have the movie Vigilantes Inc., which is the new name, everybody, of the KKK. You can't make this stuff up. But they are America's new voter suppression hitmen. They are. And Steve Bannon's at the top of the class. The government that we have right now, they're leading the charge. So what I want you to do, Greg PALAST, is I want you to be with me tomorrow if you can. Give me a good time. Let's do it, because we need to talk about this. We need to sound the alarm, because we are in the election season. Just a few days ago, we had elections in Texas, and we saw a 31-point swing. A district that President Trump won by 14 points, by 17 points, no, 14 points. This gentleman won by 17 points. So that's a 31-point swing. Something is going on out here. And I think that the opposition, well, they want to thwart that momentum. And they can do it if they don't allow you to vote. We're not going to let that happen. You know, however the election goes, and I certainly hope that that people will. I certainly hope that you will vote for people who are going to work for you. I just don't want to be cheated out of. I don't want to be cheated out of my vote. Think about that. So everybody, go to gregpalast.com. You can see the movie for free. That's the beautiful part about it. But I think what you need to do is get people together so that you can talk about the movie and so that you can be inspired. Because in fact, we need to have more showings. We're going to reach out to the Black Caucus, the Progressive Caucus up on the Hill. But what we also need to do is have showings leading up to No King's Day, March 28th. Right? There's a lot that's going on. And, you know, no one has done more work in this space. You know, I'm just really, really glad to be able to call him my friend. And so we're going to have him back on tomorrow to talk about this. But I'm glad I was able to tell you about the National Prayer Breakfast, because it sure was exciting. And millions of you watched Congressman Jonathan Jackson do his thing. And remember, he was not trying to humiliate the president. He was not trying to diminish the president. You can't be big and little at the same time. That's why I don't do name calling here. I don't need to diminish you to win. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't be what you don't want others to be to you. Be the big person. Let's not call people names. Let's just fight to end poverty, everybody. Let's fight for everyone to have equal access to equal high quality health care, education, housing. Some people are going to be in mansions, but everyone should be able to live in a place that is decent and clean and that is cared for. Everybody deserves that. So let's go up in our politics and grow up spiritually and make that happen. That's all we need to do. Let's create the beloved community. We can do that. And let's protect the vote. Benjamin Franklin said it's a republic if you can keep it. He didn't say a democracy. The founding fathers weren't big on that either. They didn't trust it. They said the great unwashed, well, that would lead to mob rule. But they did give us a republic. Now it's up to us to create the democracy. But if we can just hold on to this republic, that's a big deal. Because the alternative is a monarchy. Do you want that? We're like heading back there because that's what the oligarchy really is. You don't want that. So you got to fight for your vote. And thanks to people like Greg PALAST, we've got the tools, you've got the stories, and you need to see this movie, gregpalast.com. Okay? I'm going to have him back on tomorrow so we can talk about this. And I'm very, very excited to do it. AM 950 Radio, everybody, the voice of progressive Minnesota, sending you all so much love. The Santita